Thank you for coming. I know that the roads were a little slippery and slimy, but I believe Ms. Van Alst is still on the injured reserve list, so she will be attending on Zoom. We also have some of the applicants are also on Zoom due to the greasy roads, but I appreciate everybody's effort to get here. Jeremy, are you here?
Here.
Mr. Mercer?
Here.
Mr. Geiler?
Here.
Mr. Bennett?
Here.
Ms. Vick?
Here.
Ms. Sharp?
Here.
Ms. Smith? Ms. Van Alst, are you here?
No.
I'm here.
Ha! That is not what I call a rousing attendance, but thank you for coming. All right. So we're going to continue with the presentations of step 2. My thought about last night was I think we did well. We got the information we needed. Again, if you have any other further questions, please let Chris know so we can follow up. Because after tonight, we will then meet next week and do the balance, and then there's going to be a 3-week hiatus. So if we've got any questions, I want that to be the time, and make sure you get them to Chris, and then Chris will forward to me or whatever, but we're not to discuss them online or any chat.
Should also note, sometimes the committee wants to do site visits. If you need to arrange any site visits, we can do that before the next one.
Cool. All right. Bill, come to the front of the bus. I just have to tell you, I actually read through your application. Once again, your pages are numbered, so you're you're on the good side of the whatever. And the other thing that I want to say to you is that I really appreciate your page 2 of all the applications. What you've gotten, what you've raised, and what you're asking for. So that's just my comment to you on your application. So onward and upward, my friend.
Thank you. I just have maybe 2.5 minutes of things to say.
You sure it's 2.5?
I tried it early.
Okay. I'll give you 3 just because.
So, thank you for having me. My name is Bill Young, and I'm here on behalf of the UU meeting of South Berkshire regarding our request for $37,000 in CPA funding to complete the final phase of roof replacement at 1089 Main Street in Housatonic. The building was constructed in 1892, and it's listed in the National Register of Historic Places. When we acquired it 10 years ago, we did so with a clear commitment to preserve an important historic asset in Housatonic while keeping it actively used for public good. In the first years, our focus was on critical interior work, utilities, foundation, insulation, and code compliance, so the building could safely serve the community. Since 2024, we've undertaken a 3-year exterior preservation effort that includes much wood repair and replacement, lead paint remediation, repainting, gutter replacement, and roof replacement. This was overdue with decades of under-addressed needs. To support this work, we have raised approximately $180,000 through a capital campaign, donations, and building fund savings. Those funds are fully committed and have mostly been used for this work. With that investment, most of the exterior work is complete, with a little left to happen in spring 2026. The roof replacement was planned in 3 sections. 2, the main front section and the tower, were completed this last September with the help of FY26 CPA award, for which we are very grateful. This application is for the remaining roof section at a cost of $37,000, scheduled for completion in summer 2026. Completing this final portion is essential, of course. Partial roof replacement leaves the historic building vulnerable, while full replacement protects both the structure and the investments already made. The public benefit is substantial and ongoing. Since UUMSB moved to Housatonic, the building has supported many organizations listed in the application we have at low or no cost. It functions as a true community resource, which will continue to be so as part of our core mission. This request represents a small part of the total 3-year project, clearly leveraging primarily private funds. Our experienced project team has successfully managed CPA requirements and anticipates that this final project piece will be straightforward and done as scheduled. Thank you for your time, for your stewardship of CPA resources, and for considering this request to help preserve a valued historic building for the benefit of the entire community.
One question. You come to visit us every year. It's almost like Christmas. We know that it's CPA time because here comes Bill.
3 years.
3 years.
Yes.
How many more visits are we gonna get from you if we get this done?
We're not anticipating coming back for things that would be CPA eligible for a while.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, concerns, or issues? Martha?
Well, I wanted to tell you, I told Bill yesterday that the church looks fabulous.
Yes.
The painting on it and everything, it's gorgeous. The other thing I want to mention is we divided your roof last year and said that we would do this section this year. So I think we should be doing it.
It did come up.
I like that she brought it up and that you didn't. Very smart. Mr. Higa, do you have anything? Mr. Mercer?
I had the opportunity to meet in the church again recently, and it's amazing, the work you've done, actually in the basement, and all the repointing that's been done, all, the new furnace, everything, the vapor barrier. I know you replaced the water line this year. I think it's amazing the church of your size is doing all this work, and the community space in the back is accessible to nonprofits and groups to use. It's a great asset to the community. I think we should support this project.
Mr. Geiler?
No.
Mr. Bannon?
Nothing, okay.
Ms. Sharp? Well, this has got to be a record. You're done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
In record time.
Nice. The Dubois Freedom Center.
No, but-
Jeannie is joining us online.
Oh, okay. Is not there, it's just.
Everyone.
Go ahead.
Hi.
I'm Eugenie Stills. I'm representing the W.E.B. Du Bois Center for Freedom and Democracy, known as the Du Bois Freedom Center. And some of you remember that when we were founded in 2016, we were called Clinton Church Restoration. We are restoring a deconsecrated African-American church in downtown Great Barrington at 9 Elm Court. We have been working on this multi-phased project since purchasing the church in 2017. We are the recipient of 2 prior CPA grants, and we are here now to request $250,000 as toward the work required for the third phase of rehabilitation work, which we're calling Phase 1B basement. This is to address longstanding water infiltration problems in the basement. The men of the church dug this basement out by hand in 1949 and fitted it out in 1951. And the foundation is not structurally sound. Water has always gotten in because there's a high water table, and they basically hit water in digging. And the ceiling is very low, so it's about 6 feet 4 inches, which is not code compliant. So we are planning to lift the building 24 inches to be able to lift the basement floor when we pour a new foundation and then eventually a slab. This will also address the headroom issue, allowing us to have I think it's 7 feet 10 inches or something, and restore this historic space, which was used for community meetings, NAACP meetings, church repasts and receptions, to usable space for the center. I'm happy to answer any more specific questions. Yes, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Just one quick question. Since they redid the paving out in the street with the curbing up, has that changed the water situation at all within the basement?
We still have some pump in the basement. I've left the project for a bit, so I don't think that I'm not aware of any problems, but I haven't been sort of monitoring it. I don't know that the curb actually made a significant difference. However, as you know, that sidewalk will be removed as part of this phase of work. there's in the drawings that we provided with our application, you can see that in order to provide access to the site without being in the street during construction, they essentially have to remove that. We did get approval to remove that sidewalk back in 2024 when we received our special permit and site plan approval from the town, the relevant town boards.
Question, Eugenie, I'm looking at page 2 or page 1, where you have a total budget of the basement of $1,638,692. Individuals have only donated $83,000 of that. How much has this whole project cost, and how much has been privately raised?
So we have raised. So the project was started in 2016. We have raised $821,000 plus in individual donations since we started. We have received operating grants of $609,000 and programming grants of $485,000. The capital project grants that we've received from National Park Service, Mass Historic, and others have total 2.6 million. So those funds have been used for capital projects. So that means design work, historic preservation, planning work, construction drawings, and bid packages, project management, permitting, and the first 2 phases of construction. One was completed in 2021. The other was completed in 2025.
Okay, so you gave me a figure of 821, 609, 485, and 2.6. So the total cost of this was somewhere in the neighborhood of $4.5 million. Am I correct?
I think the total cost will be more than that, but some of the funds that we've raised to date have been used for operations, for programming, et cetera. So we received.
No, I understand that. I'm looking at the totality of the cost of this project. It concerns me that this much resource has been spent on this. It just concerns me, that's all. Anybody else, comments, concerns, or issues? Rich?
Just a question on the various phases of your project. I note that this is B of phase 1. How many phases do you anticipate?
Yeah.
And
So
how long are you expecting it to continue?
it's a little confusing. I tried to make it clear in the application in step 1, but essentially the historic structures report, which was the first thing we undertook, recommended that this be a 2-phased project. Phase 1, which was lifting the building, fixing the roof, stabilizing the structure, and phase 2, which would be the build out. Very early on in the first phase of construction in 2019, actually it was early 2020, we discovered that the building was in much worse condition. The rafters weren't touching the top plate. There was a lot of structural damage that became apparent as they started to pull off, open up the building essentially. And at that point, the initial phase was broken into 3 phases, both because of the work that needed to be raised for each of the phases, and also to manage it in, essentially to manage it in phases. We'd broken it into the roof and then structural work, and now we're doing the 3rd piece, which is the basement. There will still be a final phase 2 build out of the project.
What's that? What's the final phase?
To fit out the building, essentially the building is now, the wooden structure is now structurally sound. It has a brand new roof with, cedar shingles. The belfry is now straight and stable. And so it's ready to be lifted, which has been the plan.
No, I get it. So we're talking about the total is 4,500,000 plus change, plus the build out of the basement, which adds another 1.6 million. So now what do you anticipate the inside build out phase to be costing?
We have an estimate of, I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me, but we expect it to be several $million. The money those numbers that I quoted you is money that we've raised. It includes money for operating, money for programming, as well as money for capital projects. It's a big project because we have taken historic preservation funds from the National Park Service, from Mass Historic, including CPA. As you know, we have to follow the Secretary of the Interior standards. We have preservation easement. All of our drawings have to be, submitted for review. It adds expense to the project for sure. COVID had significant impact on this project, both in terms of how it affected the cost of things and the funding environment. And as you all know, inflation has increased the cost in the building industry, dramatically. And, if we had all the money to do it now, the whole project in one fell swoop, it would certainly be less expensive. But this is the way, that we've been able to fund it. As you know, there are caps on grants. We can sort of, get a couple $100,000, $300,000 at a time from different funders, put them together to get a phase done.
Any other questions, concerns, or issues? Thank you, Eugenie.
Okay, Eugenie, this is Chris. One last question. So the 1.6 budget in your application, that's the total for phase 1B basement?
That's correct.
And is there a phase 1C, or this is?
No, so once we're done with this, we'll go to phase 2.
Okay, thanks.
Okay,
I
We
guess
appreciate
hold on. Go ahead,
I'm
Rich.
sorry, just looking at the project in total. Once the basement part is done, you'll have a structure that's sound, no more water remediation, and then you have time to work into phase 2. How urgent do you consider phase 1B to be? I mean, it was the building sound without phase 1B.
The building was vacant and in severe disrepair when we purchased it. We have now done 2 phases of work that have essentially been emergency roof and stabilization work, and the structure, as I said, is now sound. And as you mentioned, it's ready for the basement to be lifted. We haven't addressed the water mitigation problems, but the building is empty and vacant, so it's not a particular concern there. We've done all of the hazmat stuff. We've removed all the mold. We've done the asbestos remediation. So it's really, it's a little more than a shell, but to some extent it's like a shell. It's a much drier in there than it had been. So is it urgent? It's urgent if we want to continue, move this project forward. It's the next stage of work that's required in order to make the basement a usable space, to address the water infiltration, and to continue. Again, it's definitely a project that has grown both in scope and complexity, and certainly cost. I think, to take a building that was in this significant, this state of disrepair and turn it into a cultural heritage center that will, bring tourists. Frankly, probably
Thank you very much.
any country in the world, given Du Bois's profile. I think the cost is probably within a scope that is consistent with what you would find in other projects.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you,
Appreciate
Eugenie.
it. Thank you.
Mr. Cullen. Have we seen you here before, or is this your rookie move to here?
Just
Step one?
the first time,
Yeah, okay.
yeah.
One of the things I would hope as part of your presentation, you can extrapolate out of all these documents, the public good,
Sure,
okay? After you've gone through that. I
yeah,
just wanna
my
make sure.
name's Ethan, we're being joined by Gina Ackerman, who is a co-applicant. I'm here requesting funding for 1100 Main Street, Housatonic. This building, you may be familiar with. If you're not, it was the Mining Mills office building, built in 1863, 2-3. It was heavily renovated in approximately 1917. It's been a long-term sort of incubator for businesses and creative people, artists. It's a mixed-use structure. It's as you come down into Housatonic from 183, it's sort of the first thing you see coming into town from Stockbridge. I've been part of I've been there for 20 years, and in that time, the building's a bit of it's more like an old boat. It's sort of it's in constant, need of, furthering it along in its, condition and existence. So as I spoke up to in step one, the dolomite foundation is just innately a soft stone, and like many other structures, you'll see deterioration that is not like many other buildings that are constructed out of stone. It's soft, it breaks, it falls apart. So in that portion of this application, we're basically trying to replace some of the pieces that are just too far gone, and repoint and seal what is salvageable. I think in the early 90s, I think that there was some restoration work done of the retaining wall. It had fallen down. That was rebuilt. It was repointed at that point in the late 80s, early 90s. I don't believe it was ever sealed, but in the time that I've been there, it continues to further deteriorate. Not the lintels, but the windows, the sills, they're cracking. The blocks you can touch them, they just fall apart. So that's part of why I'm here. The other part of why I'm here is these windows are simply just highly inefficient. They are beautiful and historic and possibly maybe deserve to, or maybe they warrant restoration. I mean, there are different opinions. Some people think that for efficiency that you go to a replacement window. Other people think you restore the windows that are there and put on some type of energy panel. And then there's a replication option, which I think, in my opinion, may be the best option. So they could both be historically accurate as well as efficient. And I think that would carry them into a longer term sort of preservation. So I guess that's sort of the most adjusted. Gina, do you have anything you would add to that?
Only that, just speaking to the question about public good, Ethan touched on that at the beginning. Obviously, if you've driven by the building, it's not being used to its full extent given these issues. And so the goal is ultimately to return it to being used as office space or, something that's a bit more a part of the community, not just to have it sort of privately held. I just thought I would add that to it. So I don't think that came through in the application at all.
Question.
Yes.
It's a for-profit, am I correct? This is not a nonprofit.
It's not a nonprofit.
Okay. The other thing is, I'm fascinated by the line on page 3 in step 2. It says, open to municipal acquisition. Would you like to explain to me what you mean by that? You want somebody to buy it?
When it was built, it was very much a mill town. It was where people were paid. It's where the executive branch spent its time making decisions and about, I don't know that there was a town hall in Housatonic ever. It was sort of that Mining Mills office was sort of the town headquarters.
Right.
So I would imagine what I meant to answer your question clearly is that I am open to the town of Great Barrington at some point in time buying this building if they decide that they need more space for themselves.
Okay. Questions, concerns, or issues? Pat?
Could you talk a little more about use? In other words, we're looking at proposals from the town. We're looking at a proposal from the church.
Yeah,
Obviously, that's a place where there are meetings for all kinds of groups.
sure.
So residential, commercial building
Yeah, I mean, I
doesn't
think,
look as appealing to me.
sure, you know, what I'd say is that, when I purchased the building, there were, the top of the building, was all Simon's Rock students, or alumni. And there were two therapists, there was a massage therapist, a music teacher, and then there was a private office held by a
So it's broken up
film-related-
into
film-related person.
office.
Yeah, it's basically, the building is basically, it's an office building, so.
I see.
There are 5 office spaces on the first floor, and the basement was also an art gallery. So in that sense, there was a lot of coming and going,
Mhm.
a lot of community interaction with the building. It's also housed a lot of Kelly Granger and Parsons was there for a long time. Tool and Martini Insurance was there. That's where we purchased the building from initially in 1980. Clark and Green was there. Just a lot of businesses have come through there and grown through there. A lot of notable painters and
That's
very
very helpful, thank you.
Yeah, individuals.
Anybody else? Questions, concerns, or issues?
When was the last time it was in use as a building where businesses were actually housed?
I mean, it's currently in use. I mean, it's just in use more of like art studio space, and so it still maintains that use. It's just challenging due to the inefficiency of the building. It's just challenging to have that be a constant use. So, and as recent as this summer, people in there.
It's in the historic register.
It was left online and,
I can talk to that if you want.
yeah,
It is not currently in the historic register. When I first started exploring what that meant, in the context of this building, when I spoke to folks at the MHC, they said that it looked as though it were an oversight, that the building wasn't actually in the register along with the larger Monument Mills complex. And so I've been working to submit all the materials to get it into at least the state and likely the national register. And they have expressed that would be an expedited process, given that it's clearly a part of the Mills complex. And yeah, so it's not in there, but they're aware of it, and they have expressed that it must have been an oversight. It looks like it was nominated in the 80s, probably by the previous owner. And that's all I've got.
And you
Thank
have
you.
the historical commission as well.
yes.
Go ahead, yes, ma'am.
Ethan, how long have you owned the building?
I've owned the buildings for 20 years.
20 years.
Yeah, and my father owned the building for 25 years.
Oh, so it's been in the family for like 45 years.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, the other thing that I notice in here
Yeah.
is you haven't applied for any mass historical grants. Your leveraging here is really less than what we've seen on
Correct.
other projects. You went 400,000, but you have 17% of what you want.
And you don't, because it says securing, meaning it's not,
It's not.
it
there
ain't
yet.
in hand.
Okay, so it doesn't seem, what we've said on many of the proposals is we're looking for strong leveraging,
Sure.
that we as a town can't afford to do this type of thing.
Sure.
The Dolomite reminds me of St. James. They had the
Yes,
same
same problem.
And they leveraged a lot. We
Yeah.
did not spend a lot on St. James compared to what was required on that building.
Sure.
And so it's less attractive because you don't have any leveraging here from grants or anything for
Mhm.
what you want to do.
May I just say something very quickly about that? My understanding with putting together the application was that in the way that I was conceiving of leveraging, I was thinking about 40 years of ownership, stewardship, and funding that's gone into a variety of things. And I was keeping the application very straightforward about what precisely this committee is being asked to review. So, if we wanted to look at larger, and there are later phases of things where funding from this committee will not be asked for, such as a roof and other things but later down the line. And so I was really trying to keep this just strictly focused on the things that we felt fit into the master plan and this framework. So that's why that looks that way. The other point I'll make is I and Ethan are both new to this. Obviously, a lot of the people that we've heard present have been in front of you before. We've never been here before. So the MHC grants, that's news to me. I didn't know about that. I was going for the tax credits through the Form B process and all of that. But as you know, those are only available for private funds. Those are tax credits returned on private funds spent. You can't get those tax credits on any municipal money spent. So that was just one point about the leverage, and then the larger point about future funds toward rehabilitating this building. And I think I had one more thing to say, but I've lost it. So if you want to ask anything at that point, that's fine.
It's good.
Kate? Ms. Van Alst.
Thanks, Karen. I'm thinking about the sort of pending historic register listing in terms of the question of like what type of repairs or restoration or replacement windows. And I do think that, I mean, for our purposes, having the historic the endorsement from the historic commission is good enough to be our bar of eligibility. But I believe that if you are listed on state or national historic registries, then that's going to dictate a bit of, and usually towards the more expensive, what type of work you can do. So it feels like it's good to pursue those listings for many reasons, particularly because of the ability to then access other grants to leverage with this grant. However, I feel a little bit hesitant to move the project forward while that is in limbo, because it will probably dictate some of the design and maybe expense aspects of restoration, that it might be better to come back once that question has been answered, so that some of the details of the project can be a little bit more fine-tuned.
Sure.
Like that.
Oh, sorry.
Jim?
I just think this is a wonderful building. It's a landmark building, Housatonic. It's the first building you see when you enter town, coming from Stockbridge. It's right on the corner there. It's historic. It really, the town really took off once those mills took off, and this is really, as the administration was there. It was later turned into apartments as well, couple apartments. I just think at this point, it might behoove you to reconsider and perhaps get some things in order and come back. I like it. I think it's worth supporting, but there's just not enough to hold on to. The Historic District Commission, the Historic Commission certainly approves of this building. I think it's fantastic. I know that there were 2 apartments there at one point. Then you also had the mixed use. You had the offices, you had an art gallery, and it was affordable housing. Maybe that's some component that could work with the historic. They could get this off the ground. But I support something like this, but I think it's a little bit, like Kate said, it needs a little bit more finessing to get this with.
Can I just say something really quickly? I guess since I'm hearing a lot of negativity from everybody, it seems to me that we have until May, really, where this would be looked at and reviewed and voted on. And so there's a lot that needs to happen on our end between now and May. One, bids need to be refined. Two, we've obviously, as is in the application, we have contractors that have put together various bids for us. But we're not totally sure if the mason that we've selected is actually going to be available to do it. So there's a number of things for us. We wanted to get this application in on time and have these conversations on time. The Massachusetts historic stuff, the tax credit stuff, that may or may not impact this. There's a bit of hesitation that I've got because, we're talking about window replacement or restoration. They've stated that restoration is obviously the thing to go with, but if you can demonstrate that windows are beyond repair, then you can go with replacement. And yeah, it is certainly a question of whether or not we should take advantage or we should wait for the designation until after this project is done. The point to be made is that this project is very urgent. Obviously you can see in the photos there that it's very precarious, whether or not this building can go through a couple of more cycles of this without some funding, outside funding from other than private to address these issues is a question. And so coming back in a year to address these same things and have these conversations feels, in my opinion, reckless in terms of the things that need to happen for this building. So,
with all due respect, a lot of us have sat here and listened to these projects for, I think for 9 or 10 years. It's not negative. We're just giving you our best.
Sure. Well, I just
okay. So excuse me. I didn't interrupt you. Excuse me. Let me finish.
Yeah. Sorry.
When people like Jim and Martha and myself are saying, maybe you need to go back and maybe you need to have the designations before you do this.
Mm-hmm.
That's not saying you're bad. It's saying this project has merit, but in order for it to be as totally successful as you're looking at it,
yeah,
this is what we know has happened in previous projects that have made it more successful. So,
okay.
Kate, you had something to say?
Yeah, one other thing I know that we have asked this of other applicants like the church in town. Have you pursued traditional construction loans from a bank?
Yeah, have you applied for a traditional construction loan through a bank for this?
No, I have not.
Okay.
No.
Why?
All of the improvements, repairs, everything that I've done privately. So.
No, I understand it, but seeing that you're asking us for $400,000, you've not approached a bank and saying, a construction loan, these are the things we'd like to do.
No, not.
Okay.
Yes, no.
Okay.
Well, I will say, when I went to look at the Unitarian Church, I looked at that building. It's an impressive building.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful building. It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I guess, when Gina speaks to the urgency of it, I just like every, cold season that goes, I've painted this building twice. I've addressed the windows. We rebuilt some of them in the 90s. It had triple track storms on them at one point that failed. It's just the condition that, I guess you could board it all up or something, but the interior of the building is being affected by the condition of the windows. So a lot of
the integrity of the windows is poor.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a block of.
Right, it rattles.
They rattle.
Yeah.
In the wind. So yes, I totally appreciate everything you suggest or making the points that you're making as far as it coming back with more clarity. It's I would also just say that the condition of the building as a whole is lessening as
time goes on. Sure.
Yeah.
So it's not, you can't, I do heat it, but it's not great. It's I can't have other people in there in the winter. It's just too, it's like heating a hot air balloon.
A hot air sieve, yeah. Okay.
So I'm just trying to do the right thing.
I hear you.
This has been a long you know.
This is a
10
learning,
year stewardship.
coming here is a learning curve.
Yeah,
Okay, there are plenty of people before you, and I'm looking at this guy back here. He stumbled and fell and went through a lot of stuff.
yeah,
The First Congo Church. So you're not alone.
Mm.
And it's not that I think the merit of the building and what it does is important. But we also have a charge.
yeah, of course.
Okay,
Also, sorry,
go ahead, Pat.
also, this is a very difficult year
Yeah.
when we have many more requests than usual.
Yeah.
And we feel that we have to give priority to town projects at a time where,
Yeah.
anyway,
This could be a
there's a
town
lot of
project,
demand. So,
You're not the only one.
I could be Miss America too, honey, but it ain't happening tonight. Thank you, Ethan.
Thank you, thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gina.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Risen, please come to the front of the bus.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
So I'm glad to be in front of you again tonight. Thank you for taking your time to have me. I have some new pictures for you to give you some idea of what we're talking about. I have some colored photos if that's of any help to you. The main thing I wanted to bring to your attention is since we met last time, I've had a vendor come out and do another assessment. And the assessment price has gone up, not down, unfortunately.
Up.
They asked me what the priority was, and what I told them my priority was for the documents that are most often accessed, which are the ones that are in the vault in my office. So all of the records need to be preserved and digitized, but the focus for me for going for the ones in the vault would increase efficiency in my office quite a bit. So like people come in and they ask for a marriage license, for instance. The process is searching for it through paper, finding it, photocopying it, reducing the size of the document, then printing it off onto another what's called a vital records form, and then stamping it. And if I were to have all of that digitized, that would drastically cut down on the amount of time. It would be much more efficient in my office. So I'm not, I almost feel like I selfishly chose that for the efficiency of my office, but the documents there are in the basement are older documents. So there's more than one way to look at this as to what would be the priority for the project.
But there's one important fact about this whole request
Sure.
that jumped out at me. It's the law that we have to do this, and we haven't done it. So the question is, how do we get started? How do we, and I went to see him today, how do we phase it? How do we cost share it with the town? Because it's a requirement of law that we need to maintain records. And I know personally about this because 6 years ago, I started with Senior Work Off trying to scan all the old building when Ed May was here. We tried to do that with Dick Coons, and we started, you cannot believe there were boxes of, and these were rolls of plans and stuff. So now I didn't realize it was law. I'm reading this going, oh, we're supposed to be doing this. The question is, how do we help him do what he needs to do? To the tune of 400,000. I'm like, okay, that ain't happening. But what can we do from our perspective and the town's perspective? How do we phase it and cost share it so he can get started on what he needs to get done? Go.
So prioritizing the documents.
Yeah.
It's a long and complete list of the documents that you've provided, but so to Karen's question, you have to ask yourself, how are we going to prioritize a small amount of this and what goes first and how you can envision this? That's sort of, I think, what we're hoping to see, something over a 10-year period of finding these documents. And I guess the questions to ask are, you very ably point out the reasoning. the reasoning are, these are the documents that are most requested. Are they falling apart?
No, they're in better condition than the ones that are.
So the ones that are falling apart, maybe that's also something you have to ask yourself, if we don't preserve these within a certain period of time, will they be
Correct.
lost?
Yeah,
And that may be the first priority that you have to take into account. Then again, you can't do it all. So
yeah, so.
that's what we're asking for.
So there's also the question of environmental controls. So there's no environmental controls in the basement currently, there's none in the vault. So if it were to persuade the board to provide greater funding initially one way or the other, I would be happy to say, let's focus on the older documents. I would basically, I chose that the priority of the documents, like I said, just because that would, make my office run in a more efficient fashion.
Do you have any bids on the climate control aspect?
No, the people that came out, don't actually provide climate control. So they would be just preserving and digitizing, and then they do shelving.
Here, I'm just hearing this as a thought.
Well,
In the budget, he gets $2,000 a year per document.
Great.
We'll all be dead, our children, grandchildren, great-great-grandchildren will be dead before that happens. What I'm wondering is, could we, oh, great one of the select board, first of all, increase his nut and also maybe take a bond out on climate control of this? So, that would not be CPA issue because it's a capital asset that the town would enjoy. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do understand. I think part of the point we have to look at, which we talked about with Joe last night, is that this group has put in their priorities funding town projects.
Right.
So right now, we're a little backwards, and Liz has probably talked to you about this, that we really don't know what town priorities are because the budget process is just in its infancy.
Correct.
But having said that, I think, and Josh and I have talked, we all know that 400,000, we understand why he asked for it, is probably not gonna happen because we just don't have that kind of money.
Right.
But I think our job here is to give them as much as we have. And then in the scope of what the finances look like for the budget, Liz, the select board and the finance committee, jointly, we all make a decision whether there's some more money we can give them. But I think our job is to figure out what we can give them because it's a town project.
Go ahead, Jeremy, and then Pat.
So that's what I have a question about, is like, should we be looking for more guidance from like the select board for like in this cycle to create something for our next cycle? So that we have more guidance, because it seems like the town asks are gonna be more than we have. And
Always.
so I wonder if like we can get a little bit more guidance on what we should be prioritizing from a body other than just ours.
So Rich and I both obviously have a hand in this. Yes, but not this year.
No, I
Yes.
get that. I think
I
maybe
think
we
you're
should
gonna
make
see
a
what-
formal request.
No, I don't think you have to, because I think what Liz and I have already talked about that. And the fact is, this is a little bit backwards. So, this process, although it's worked well, I'm not saying it hasn't worked, it's worked very well. I think at this point in isolation, we have to decide what we can give, whether we think this is a worthwhile project and what we can give to it. I think next year, we may have a better handle on what the town can contribute than what CPA can contribute.
Right.
And how we prioritize it. If we say, which I would be surprised, Josh, this isn't on our top 10 as a town. Well, then CPA would have to say, then why are we even dealing with it?
Well, it's also the law. That's the other part of this that when I read this, I was like, oh, well, that's it.
Well,
That's.
And I don't wanna, it is law and it's important, it's also unfunded mandate, as many.
Well, it's like
many.
Like the veterans bit, the
Yeah.
same thing. I said this to him today. It's like, yeah, unfunded mandate. Do this, but we're not gonna help you pay for it. Too
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah.
Too bad, so sad.
And we.
Hold on, Martha, and then Pat.
So Josh and I talked and he said if it's phased, it just gets even more expensive because well, you said the estimate already went up, right?
Yeah, they came in and they did a more in-depth analysis assessment of what we have. And the initial assessment, they said it would be about 400,000 to do the entire collection essentially.
Is that the basement, you're in the attic too?
Yeah, that's what she said initially when she
The
was
whole
here for
nut.
maybe 2 hours, let's say.
Mhm.
She came back with her specialist. And they were both here for 3+ hours, and I have an estimate of $423,641.95 for just my vault.
Yes, your vault.
So not the basement.
Not at all.
We're talking $1 million,
For the attic, which are both
chocker blocked.
equal, yeah, and have more compromised documents.
So,
Hold on, when you're done, because I need Kate.
question,
I know, but I want to get to Kate because she's been quietly sitting there. Kate, go ahead, pop in, please.
Okay, I have a couple of questions. I'm just going to sort of rattle off, and again, I like everyone else, I think this is an important project and one that we're going to have to chip away at over time. So first question is I imagine this is a scenario where you'll have to go through a multiple bid process, and
Oh,
are
yeah.
there multiple companies out there that do this, or?
I know of at least 2 right now that do, and then I have a third company that actually specializes in assessing what we have, purging what is duplicative and doesn't need to be kept, and storage work. So in a sense, depending on the amount of funding I get, I'm almost leaning towards doing that type of thing, so we can actually get a better handle on what we have to
Okay.
before getting into preservation. So a lot of the phasing of this is contingent upon the level of funding that we get.
And
Okay,
then my
that's
other
good.
questions are, I would wonder if there's and something I would be willing to fund given the size of the overall cost. Will one of these firms, or is there a separate type of like consultant that could review the age, the condition, and perhaps the importance of the files, and weigh in on this question of what's the order to tackle the project?
What's the priority?
Yeah, if there's a an expert on old documents out there who will say, this many are in critical danger and can't survive 5 more years. And I do want to get eventually more into this question of long-term storage, because that keeps popping up across different areas.
So to respond to your question about determining which ones are the priority, it's sort of how you view the project. I mean, the stuff that's much older is gonna be lost first. So if we're worried that it's gonna go in a sooner amount of time, then we should be prioritizing the basement. However, a lot of that stuff's been down there for hundreds of years, and
Nobody's looked for it.
yeah, and I don't necessarily think it's gonna disappear, but that's definitely the more critically at-risk documents. And again, I chose the documents in my office because those are the ones that are accessed. That's not to put no level of importance over one or the other. They're all the documents we're discussing are permanent records that are by law required to be preserved.
Martha?
so I have
All
a
right, Pat, I'm
question.
sorry. Just, all right, stop. Go ahead. All right?
I didn't get to do my second question.
Well, she didn't get to do her first. Calm down. Jesus, Mary and Joseph.
I was disappointed with this as a proposal because what I hear from you is a lot of questions about what to do first, but therefore it's hard for me to envision what it is that we're really funding.
So
how many hours a day? What it just seems very vague to me.
Yeah, and it is vague because of the scope of what we're going to have to do. So I don't have a detailed plan because I don't know what the funding will be. But from my perspective, what I want to do is replace the shelvings in the vault so that when we get the remediated documents back, They're going into a space that can be held for a long period of time. So what I just chose was to do the shelving in the vault and then focus on the documents that are being most often requested, digitize those, and then have a safe housing for them. And then once we get through that, which will be many years of this process, then it would expand into the basement.
Martha,
But so this 400,000 would do the shelves and the,
No,
no,
no, not even. So not with this company, not with the one company that's come out and I've had contact with to do an assessment. There is the potential that if we were to go out with the other companies, they could potentially beat the price, but they don't offer free assessments. So we would have to be paying money for them to come out and just give us information. So that's why I've been relying on this first vendor as a source of information.
thank you.
Martha, and then Jim, and then Rich.
Josh,
Yeah.
could you explain how this works? If we contract with somebody, do they come out and remove all the records and take them somewhere and process them and bring them back? Is that how it works?
Yep, so they have insured vehicles and they would be taking specific volumes at a time, processing, deacidificationing the pages, preserving them in special Mylar, rebinding them in a special book, and then returning them to us. And during that process, they tell me that if I get a request for those documents, I'm still able to get them transmitted at least digitally, is what they say.
I have a stupid question. If you're gonna digitize everything, why the hell do we have to preserve them? If they're at least, we have a copy of them, why do we have to keep them?
Because the law requires preservation.
You understand what I'm saying? It's like, if you want the record, we have the record, but
It's a law.
And
go ahead, Rich.
no, I said you had an ad.
Go
I
ahead.
mean, I'm at the end of the order.
Yeah, go ahead, Rich, and then Jeremy. Go ahead.
Well, I'm just.
Jim, whatever.
Okay, I'm sorry. Too much shuffling. I've been in other jurisdictions, lived in other jurisdictions where the laws were that the records had to be kept. But there was, the law included the fact that if it was digitized, that is your working copy. And if you're storing the other copy, the other material, the actual paper materials, in as best a way that you can store them, you are doing your due diligence. You're able to bring forth the documents and you are storing and keeping those documents. So down the line, as you can afford to do this next deacidification and make the actual paper part of it visible and usable by someone, you still have something else that you can use that are making the documents available. So I think that the law would also include that a digitized version of the document is a preserved version of the document. I think that would be a question to ask someone in legal.
Jim?
I think perhaps to start, it might be good to find someone who actually can assess the collection, what needs to be done, how to prioritize it. Because it seems like you're trying to do all of it, and you really need someone professional to do that. So
Yeah.
once you have that assessment, I think then we can go forward and say, okay, well, these are like the documents you have now, the current ones. Perhaps those could be handled in a certain way based on that assessment. You know, I've seen your work, I'll help scan it in, marriage records and death certificates and things like that. Whereas a lot of the artifacts downstairs, they're town artifacts, just like a lot of the materials that the historical commission has. And they're all being shuffled someplace, but no one's really seeing or getting the benefit from them. And I think that's the bigger picture, but first to get started, find out what's there, what can be handled by, lay people and with some guidance, and then kind of go down the path. But a long term, a lot of the documents that the historical commission has are just stored at the Ramsdale Library. And the Ramsdale, when they renovate that, they want those out of there. So that's another big project. Where are those all gonna go? And again, no one's really done an assessment of those, where there might be just scraps of paper from somebody's scrapbook, or there might be important down documents.
Jeremy?
Mine was along the lines of what Rich
Okay.
was saying, is I'm also curious too, and then also what other municipalities have done. Because like the usable part is the digitized version, right, and they're easily accessible. And then can you face it like that, where you have some preservation that doesn't, that we're not spending all of this money now.
I know, Martha, I know, go ahead.
And then I realized that this probably risks losing them, and so something like doing some sort of assessment where we, like all of the things that we really need to keep, want to, and need to keep, that those maybe we're pulling them out and then doing the full restoration on those, and I mean, it's, yeah.
So my understanding is the law requires preservation, digitization is not preservation.
Okay. Martha,
Listening to all this, it seems to me we should fund someone to come in and evaluate what needs to be done and prioritize based on that evaluation what we should do first. And because he doesn't have the expertise, he's relying on people who come in for an hour or two.
who are trying to sell a service.
Yes.
My comment is, that's just where I was gonna go.
Great.
I can see CPA saying, Josh Risen, you're a good guy and you do a great job as a town clerk, but you don't have a freaking clue about how to assess and what needs to be done and what needs to be preserved and in what order. What we could do, like we do with pre-estimates and pre-construction costs, is say, we could say, here's $25,000 or 10,000 or whatever it is, to get a professional in here to say, Great Barrington, I have now found 1.5 million documents. I believe that the way to do this is this, this, and this. Pay a professional.
Yeah.
Because you're not the guy to, you may have to do the scut work, but you're not the guy to make the assessment. God bless you. Thank God you brought this up. I think that's the important part. So I'd like to see, that's where I was going with this whole thing. I think it's time that okay, we're gonna try to honor it. We're gonna get somebody in here who really knows what they're doing. And I don't want somebody who's trying to sell their service, because that's the biggest problem with these guys.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think all of the vendors on there would be trying to do that too.
No, I get it, but I'm wondering, is there a person or a company that goes into, I mean, like you've got, like Charlie Flint does paintings and artwork. I'm wondering if there's somebody who doesn't do this.
Karen, I can check with the historical commission.
Yeah.
There are people out there that do assessments, circuit riders and things like that. Maybe I'll look into that and get back to Josh.
And I have the name of a company that does do it, that other clerks have used. The reason why I haven't reached out to them is because there is a large price tag to doing the assessment process alone. So what they would do is they'd come in, they'd go through every document, see what we have, figure out an organizational structure for it, but then that wouldn't go into the preservation process. So basically they'd say, here's what you have, and then it would basically be on the town to decide what is the priority for preservation.
Well, that's fine, that's step one, and then we can go to step two.
Yeah.
One.
I think definitely that's what.
And I think that as we're looking at this and evaluating it and saying, okay, because we're I think that we need to go to the finance committee and say, okay, so this may be something you need to consider.
It's not the finance committee, you go through the town manager's office.
Well, okay, so.
Do you know how much the large amount that they would charge to do this would be?
My estimate would be probably $20,000 to $30,000.
Right, I can see that. Kate?
Oh, well, Karen, you took the words out of my mouth, which is that I think that it is, given the scale of this, worth it to get that assessment done by someone who is not in the business of selling the product or the service to us. Two, I think this might be a great opportunity for some cooperation or, sort of co-support with the historical commission. That in terms of doing that, like, in terms of like the part of looking for consultants, reviews of consultants, that sort of process. Josh has to keep his office running day to day, not necessarily do all the scut work here. But I think that something that falls in the metric of 10 to 20% of a giant project is probably worth investing up front to make sure that we are getting
I think,
a
that- I
good bang
think
for
that's
buck
the
here.
most important thing that's gotten out of this.
And there'd be a lot of value in just having that assessment done, because then we would actually know what we have and we would be getting rid of duplicative stuff potentially at the same time and freeing up space for where we're gonna house stuff that we can't get rid of.
Wait, you gotta look at the whole metric, the whole, the bird's eye view. We're gonna get it, we're gonna restore it, we gotta store it, how are we gonna digitize it? And I think that we need an overall, it's almost like a project manager on a building. You know, they know what all the pieces are doing. Steve and then Jeremy.
So what I can envision happening, because there's an urgency, but there isn't.
Yeah.
That we approve some sort of money for this year for that type of work. And between the town and the CPA next year, we start to look at how we're gonna think about funding a price that we now understand what it is.
The other thing we could do with this that I know is gonna put everybody on their heels is why couldn't we bond it?
That's possible that, and also, I think that it would be interesting to see if the consultant who comes in, that's what I will call them, if there is also federal money to look at this other forms of grants.
Yep.
Not to exclude CPA,
No, no,
but to, this can't
Enhance.
rest on the back of the CPA
No, no,
alone or the town alone. Let's see if there's other sort of money around that we can all pair together and get this done in a reasonable amount of time.
Jeremy,
So, yeah, it's actually a Steve question. So Steve, what would you envision? So after we get this report, who or what body is gonna just prioritize what gets done?
It's ultimately, I think it's gotta be through the select board and the town manager's office and the finance committee.
And so like what, at least I feel comfortable with, like, so then after this initial report, that before we see it again, like that.
I agree.
yeah, and of course, he would have to be involved. I think the
Oh, if you
interesting.
Bring it to us, you're right.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing that he said is that, which I appreciate your humility and honesty, is like, I would really like get the records that constantly are asked for, but yet we have these ones that are 1784 that we need to deal with also. How do you gradate that? And that's why a pro comes in and will say, because it takes the emotional piece out of it. Kate, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, just to piggyback on what Steve said, is that absolutely some of the brief of what we hire a consultant to do should be to educate us about funding sources.
Yeah. Yep. Pat.
I just have a procedural question. In a sense, we're suggesting a revised
Step two.
application. Is that possible within our structure?
Well, I think what can happen is, because we're not voting on anything, that there's gonna be enough time now that I believe that with Mr. Mercer and Mr. Risen, they may be able to get an amended step two back to us.
Sure.
And then we could reconsider, because December 18th, if you can get that, and then we've still got 3 weeks after that, it's gonna be like the 13th of January. Not to take away from anything that you suggested, I think what you've done is you've opened a door into a major cavern that we need to deal with. And to get the professional help that we need, not you, we need,
I need help too.
I get it. okay?
I actually have another question on that. Chris, do we need another step two for this? Isn't this broad enough that if we fund a portion of
Yeah.
this, it can be used for that anyway?
I think it's probably broad enough. I mean, you can all determine that. I know in the past you've had questions from applicants. Could you elaborate more about this, or show us a cost estimate for that, or tell
Right.
us more about your private leverage there?
Right.
You've asked those questions and applicants have come back and given you that information, or
Yeah.
can you break out the roof into 3 phases, Bill? It's just,
Right.
You know, so.
We're asking for fine tuning
That's-
is what we're
That's
doing.
completely fine. I think at the end of the day, you will, however you go forward with this, you will need the historical commission's input. I mean, at some point, you're gonna have to decide what is most worthy of preservation, whether it's the creation of the town, the 1761 first town meeting document that calls you in the name of His Majesty the King. I mean, or is it
Timely, isn't it?
other documents that are have more of an immediate public benefit, like that Josh described, things that are utilized all the time.
Steve,
Yeah.
Ultimately, you'll need that advice.
But what I would ask, Josh, you're probably already gonna do, Rich and I are here chairs of the finance committee and select board. You keep Liz informed of this discussion.
Yeah.
And I think, so we're all not in a silo. And I think out of this discussion, there's a pretty good chance we're gonna find a solution to this that's not as much piecemeal and is not much guesswork.
Sure.
And maybe with the town's help and CPA's help, we can figure this out.
yeah, I think that that's the most important because it's a big, I mean, there's probably 1.5 million documents. Nobody can make sense of that.
It
unless-
also, Josh is trying to do something in 1 year that should have been done over many centuries. And it's not gonna.
Picky. Okay,
I'd be happy to rewrite, like, I have number 16 on the second step as where I talk about phases. I'd be happy to reword that to say to
Sounds
the
good.
effect that we're looking to have somebody come in and do it.
perfect. Why don't you do that? Submit it to Chris and then we
And
can
it
deal
would
with it.
certainly be helpful to have some estimates of what that would be.
And I will,
You and Mercer need to get it together. It would be great if we could have some preliminary idea by next meeting, which is the 18th. You have 8 days. No pressure.
One more thing.
What, dear?
Well, it seemed to me that these are the experts, and I think we alluded to it, but what should come out of this? Are there any grant opportunities from your expert who should know if there are grants out there to do this kind of work?
so I did apply for, it's called the roving archivist.
Yeah, I saw that.
applied and they denied or never got back, so.
Well, I would
That,
imagine,
that's a statement, right?
Yeah.
Good idea, though.
I would imagine in this part of the world, I mean, you're probably not gonna have it in but the New England states, I bet you're not alone.
No.
And I would be curious if there's not a Facebook group, but a group of people who do what you do saying, well, what the hell do we do? We've got to go back to 1792. What did you do? Who did you talk to? Who assessed you? There may be a way to do that.
It also may be that there are groups that will be very interested in the 1700 and 1800s records. And that we may tackle the more current ones. But obviously, there's gonna be some groups that say, you have what in your possession? And, and we really wanna look at it and figure out a way to save it.
Hot dogs.
Great.
Onward and upward, boys and girls. Okay, thanks, Josh.
Yeah.
Aren't you glad you came tonight?
The 18th, you said, right?
Yeah, you're the 18th,
Next meeting's 18th,
right?
and then if everybody could hold January 13th as a possible meeting date in January.
Because we're gonna have to vote, and we're not gonna vote until we've heard all of this and this comes back and.
Previously asked you to hold a different January date, but that's not available. So the first availability in January is 13th.
Okay? Any other concerns or issues? If not, I'll take a motion. Oh, citizens speak, my mistake. Go ahead. Citizens speak, anybody on the, where are we? On the, Zoomers? Want to chat? Evidently not. We even have a Berkshire Edge recording note taker. Wow, very important.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. How about you, Kate? Okay, time to adjourn? Okay, great. Thank you, boys and girls.